Welcome to the Your Leadership Legacy podcast. My name is Tina Paulus-Krause, and I'm so excited to bring you this next podcast dedicated to you high performers out there who want to reinvent yourself, reinvent your business, maybe your career, all of it. This podcast is all about being dedicated to transformation and being the best possible leader of yourself and others that you can be in order to create a legacy that lives on. Welcome to Your Leadership Legacy. My name is Tina Paulus-Krause. I am the founder and CEO of True You Teams. And here we go. Welcome to Your Leadership Legacy. My name is Tina Paulus-Krause, and we have an amazing and beautiful human with us up next, Aruna Krishnan. Hi, Aruna. It's nice to see you.
Nice to see you again, Tina. Thanks so much for having me on.
Yes, I had the pleasure of spending some time with you this week, and you had me on your podcast. I don't know, how long ago has that been now? I don't even know what day it is.
A month or so, yeah.
Yeah, whenever that is. So I'm excited to have the listeners get to know who you are and what you're up to in the world. I'm going to read your bio, and then we'll get into some questions. Sound good?
Sounds great.
All right, awesome. So Aruna Krishnan is a strategy consultant, best-selling author, and podcast host. Her Busy Mind book series and podcast, Lead That Thing, I love the name of your podcast, Lead That Thing, cover leadership topics and competencies. Her company, OPTIM LLC, is that how you, OPTIM? Is that how you pronounce it? Okay,
correct.
OPTIM LLC works with small business owners to define business and product strategies that increase their revenue and growth. She also has 15 plus years of experience in technology, in the technology field, and leads efforts in large corporations to define, design, and deliver high quality products for their customers. Aruna's main mission in life is to lift other people up by helping them find themselves, find happiness and success, and by educating and encouraging them through content, stories, and inspiration. Welcome, Aruna.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's so fun to have you on. We had such a great conversation when you had me on your podcast that I'm like, oh, we must continue this and must do this again.
Yes, absolutely.
So tell the listeners everything about Aruna Krishnan.
Sure. Well, first of all, hi, and so nice that you guys could join. And my story that I'm going to share is going to be probably a little different from all the leaders. And I love sharing my story because it's a story of a late bloomer. But then when I bloomed, I could not be stopped. So this is why I like to share my story. So I'll give you a little bit of background. So kind of what Tina had talked about in my bio with having that years of experience in technology. I started as a developer and moved on to more functional roles and then moved on to management. And although I was successful in each of those roles, I wasn't convinced that I was great at it, even though everybody would tell me that, hey, you're doing a great job. Just something in me wasn't feeling like I was doing the best that I could. And I love to talk about this because I know I've heard even the most successful leaders talk about this topic, and it's imposter syndrome. And it really grabbed me, and I like to say it had me prisoner for like 35 years where it took me a really long time to come out of it. But when I finally came out of it, it was through like a personal transformation. It started with a spiritual transformation, getting out of a depression type of situation, embracing mindfulness, having that spiritual transformation, and which translated then into a personal transformation. And once I realized what my strength was, and what I was capable of doing, I really felt the need to share this knowledge because I know there's a lot more people that don't necessarily feel like, oh, they think about leadership. And that too is a problem. The definition of leadership, a lot of people think it's, oh, C-suite executives, that's leadership, or leadership in some form of a title. But leadership is in so many aspects of your life. And in fact, it prompted me to write my latest book on leadership. I talk about leadership in schools, at home, and Tina, you know this, you as a mom, my first leadership job was as a mom. And I feel like that gave me so much courage to take on leadership positions. It could be in communities, it could be in organizations. So leadership, I think we need to all think about it broadly, and we do it every day, and we don't need a title, we don't need that so-called power. It's our power to influence that makes us true leaders. So that's the type of message that I've been on a mission for the last 2 years trying to get out, to say, number one, believe in yourself. So it starts there. And just to talk about it's kind of led me to this journey. So the very first book that I wrote, I want to talk about this because this is where I started to find my purpose. So I'll tell you sort of chronologically. The first book was on emotional intelligence because it tied back to my mindfulness journey where I had to take control of myself, right? Before I could think of doing anything else. And and then the second book was on problem solving, which it was like I just had this idea and I built on it. And this last book is on leadership. And what I didn't realize when I came up with the series was like, that's really the progression. You lead yourself first.
Sure.
Then you start to go out there and solve problems. And then you become a leader in the true sense where you're able to empower, guide people, encourage people, leadership in that sense, and you're looking for the greater good in, in for people and in society and in your organization. So it's coincidental that my series lined up that way, but maybe it wasn't so
Yeah.
coincidental in
Right.
the end.
That's the path, right? I always say that transformation is it's a process, it's a system, it's a path. It's not like
Yeah.
different. There's like certain steps in the way that no matter how many people you talk to, we all kind of go through as we embark on this transformation journey. And you said so many amazing things. I'm like, oh, that's a question. That's a question. But the one thing that you said that I want you to expand on
Mhm.
is the whole idea of imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
Because it's big. It's big in women. It's big with women. And I think probably even men too, right? But
Hmm.
talk more about what that is
Yeah.
and kind of how it played out in your life.
Yeah. So I think what imposter syndrome basically is you having all this talent, but you as a person not being able to recognize it or acknowledge it. So when you walk into a situation, it's this feeling of, I'm not really sure if I'm going to do great. So now it's different from lack of confidence. It's just that lack of recognition of all this talent and skills that you really do have and that you really can do. And and the worst part is it's really hard to recognize it. And a lot of times it'll be that reinforcement from the outside that you'll have to recognize, like, okay, maybe this is happening because people are telling me that what I'm doing is a good thing, and not to confuse that with validation. But then as you go on, I think as you mature too with the way you process things in your mind, and this is what has helped me, is recognizing it as soon as it creeps in my head and say, no, you need to go away. I see what you're doing. Because even today, it might happen. I walk in out of my comfort zone, and it's like, just like I was actually admitting to you this before we started. I said, hey, Tina, I've never been live. I'm not really sure about this. But then I'm like, you know what? It's fine. Once we get started, we'll be okay. Just, go away. But not to say that you never have those doubts, but being able to recognize that you truly are good, look back on your history and what you've achieved, and know that, use that as a guide to say, yeah, I can go forward. And deep inside, and I think it's always very important to search inside yourself and know who you are. That's such a key, because that's what will say, I have this drive, and yes, I can. And that's what drives you forward.
Yeah.
But that's a huge problem, and it can start from your teens and go through, like for me, through 35 or even 45, who knows. But the first step is, acknowledge that and get it out, because you are good, and you are good enough for sure.
Everything we need is inside, right?
Yeah.
Imagine if we had the mindset and the leadership content and curriculum in grade schools and middle schools and high schools, like all the way through.
Yeah.
And we started off in life like that.
I think that's so important. And Tina, I want to say something super important right now with this pandemic and all the mental health issues, especially in teens. And I can only speak to teens because I have a teen at home and just I hear about her friends. It is so important for that mental health. So whatever we can do to support those teens as parents, or set up the situation where, acknowledge them, be open to that conversation with them. It's so important. And even we might be suffering ourselves, right? It's just such a different situation. We don't have that social, like direct social connection. Just acknowledge that, yeah, it's a tough time and we're going through a tough time. Find that support, connect with friends. And for me, podcasting and being on people's podcasts has been a savior, because it's been a different form of connection, and it's so important.
Yeah, yeah. We are humans. We
Yeah,
crave and desire connection, even though we say maybe sometimes we don't, right? But like
yeah,
at the end of the day, and I think that's where we're at as a society right now in the world with, like people are starting to kind of rise out of this and go, okay, we can't like live like this for the rest of our lives. So what does that look like and what does that mean?
right,
Yeah. So
right.
the leadership stuff where I want to go next with you is your work with corporate.
Yeah,
Yeah. Talk to us about that.
yeah. So I was in the corporate world for a good 15 years. And I think, like most people, it was about, how do I get to the next level? How do I get to the next level? How can I be challenged? And I just felt like I was constantly running into barriers. So even though I was successful in my roles and I enjoyed what I was doing, there was just not like this 100% satisfaction, where there was something gnawing at me, maybe thinking forward, like, do I want to, and I think, Tina, you kind of said this, when I reach my expiry date, like, what do I want to be remembered for? Is it that, oh yeah, I worked and I did a great job, and okay, Aruna's gone, nothing to really remember,
Yeah.
uh and I didn't feel like that. I always felt like there has to be something else. What is this purpose? And part of that got sparked during that spiritual journey, right?
Mhm.
But for a long time, I couldn't figure out, where do I start? Where do I go with this? And for me, it was about 2 years ago where I felt like, okay, my starting point is going to be sharing this journey, because I've pretty much climbed this mountain. I want to show people that things are possible. And partly because I've seen people struggle in my family. And I said, well, here's some place where I've experienced this personally, that I can share my experience and my growth and my techniques with other people. And it's like, we're all deserve to be happy, because I've seen my transition from being really at such a low point, feeling so much despair, to, and Tina, you've known me for a couple of months, but I love life. I love life, and I constantly challenge myself, and I just want people to know that there is a solution, and you don't have to struggle. You deserve to be happy, and it's all really within you. And I like to say, as I kind of highlight in my first book, it all starts with a thought. So if your thought, basically, because I'll go through this, flow is your thought drives your actions, which becomes a habit, which then becomes like your personality, which then drives your destiny. So it starts with a thought, and
Yeah.
that's what you where you end up. So I felt like I'm equipped with this knowledge, and maybe this is what my why is, or this is what my purpose is. So I've been trying to share some of that knowledge through my books, and then I launched my podcast after losing my corporate job. So that I did lose my corporate job in March to this pandemic, and it ended up being a blessing, because then it opened so many doors, because I looked into entrepreneurship, so where I met you and lots of other women, and where now I feel like I have an avenue to start to share more things, and form my message in that type of entity. and I feel better equipped to do that.
That's amazing. Yeah. And we do similar work. And so that's why, like, we could probably talk for 5 hours about this kind of stuff, right?
Right.
But I want to know, like, so 2020 happened and you're new in the business and you're
Yeah.
trying to figure it out. We're all kind of trying to figure it out in our own way.
Yeah.
What's been your biggest leadership lesson in 2020?
Yeah, it's really interesting because I feel like I have lessons every day. And so I'll tell you a story because yesterday I was walking with my husband, and uh, obviously there's been a lot of ups and downs in 2020 for me as well. And after the walk with my husband, because we came out and I was feeling like a lot of chaos going on, and because with my book getting launched right now, there was some stresses that I was experiencing. And at the end of the walk, it felt like I had like this light bulb moment, and it felt like I have to, number one, have that your glass is half full attitude, because there's always going to be things that are not in your favor. But definitely, number one, so I have a couple points on this. Number one, acknowledge that those things are happening. See if you can actually make a difference and change those outcomes. Number two, acknowledge all the positive things that are happening to you. It's so easy to forget about those positive things that are happening to you. And
Yeah.
the third thing, super, super important, I say, is empathy for others. Like, I think that's almost like the golden nugget, right? I think world peace, if we all had empathy for others, there would be world peace in a second, right? So definitely trying to have more empathy.
Mm-hmm. So you've mentioned a couple of times celebrating your wins, and that I want, like, I was going to say as women, but I don't think it's just women. I think it's just who we are as humans. It's next check mark, next check mark, next check mark, and we don't take time to just stop and celebrate the wins. And I believe that there's a couple of reasons for that, but I want to hear your reasons for why you think we don't do that.
Why we don't celebrate our wins?
Yeah.
So I guess from a spiritual standpoint, I think it's that mindset about I will be happy when X, right? And it's that mindset has to be changed, because if you have that type of conditional thinking, then I don't think you ever reach a point of happiness. So it should not be dependent on reaching a goal. The goal should be, oh, here's a milestone in my journey, and that's great, and this is what I've learned in my journey. But who knows if you're going to be alive tomorrow? Let's be honest, right? Like, we've all had losses in our life, and the person we talked to them last night, they're not there tomorrow, and that could happen to us, right? So I definitely always feel live every day to the fullest, and that's why I think it's so important. Acknowledge everything you have every day. It's so important
So
because we take things for granted.
yeah, the gratitude piece is huge. I was at a retreat. I told this a couple of times. I was at a retreat, I don't know, several years ago, and the trainer said, "Okay, write down the first 50 things that you're grateful for." And it was in the beginning of my journey, right? And I'm like,
Yeah.
I literally went blank. I could not think of what to say, and it's just so
Right.
sad. And so, like, today, I'll rattle off 700 of them, right? But like,
Right.
the mindset, it's a practice. It doesn't come
Mm-hmm.
right
Mm-hmm.
away. And so, but yeah, you
Exactly.
can't be in any other mood or any other, like, disposition when you have gratitude front and center.
Right. Right.
Yeah. So gratitude kind of it's a great tool to get you out of whatever
Yeah, definitely.
bungaloo you're in. So lots of lessons in 2020 about leadership and all that kind of stuff. What are you doing differently in 2020 from like a training and a content and coaching perspective, because we've got everything going on like it is?
Yeah, so I think right now I would say I'm more in the strategy perspective and starting to build up, like, how do I keep constantly getting my message across? So I'm definitely planning a couple of webinars and things like that to get out there. And this is one way for people to see that here's Aruna and here's something that she's going to offer. as well as the books that I'm putting out so I have the leadership book that I'm putting out. So definitely embracing more of the virtual platform and with the ebooks as well. So, and definitely connecting with people on whether it's on Zoom or things like that, just to have that connection. Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, we've all had to kind of relearn networking and connections,
Right.
that looks like, and all that kind of stuff. So,
Right.
I think when all this first started going down, people were leery about the fact that online would, quote unquote,
Mhm.
work or not work or whatever
Yeah.
it is. But there's so many things to be grateful for when it
Right.
comes to it, because you can interact with, I don't know, I'm not even gonna go down the list of reasons, but there's so many things that are so good about it. So
Right.
we get to like let go of the past and
Yeah.
start creating and reinventing what the future is going to look like, and that's super exciting.
Yeah.
So do you find, as you meet with your clients and talk to people, is everybody kind of in that mindset, or do you feel like there's still some work to do for people to get there?
So I would say there's a little bit of both. I think that the gain that people are getting is that yes, now I get to have that balance. I get to walk my dog whenever I want, or I get to be with my kids. And then on the flip side, it's like, oh, I get to be with my kids 24/7. So there's a little bit of the both, but I know that we've been doing that for 6 months, 7 months. There's definitely some amount of, oh, I miss the water cooler talks, or oh, I miss the happy hours. So there's a little bit of craving of that, more of that in-person connection, which is missing. But I would say good 80% of it is really good, that people have really adapted to working virtually. And it is quite amazing how people have pivoted, even in the business world, that you're getting so much done.
Yeah, I think that, from most of the businesses that I've seen and talked to and worked with and stuff like that, it's like the first time ever that there's this like feel of, we all get to band together and figure this out and, put in place what we need to put in place in our company and move forward. Like there's that wall isn't there anymore. That wall that used to be there isn't there. So that's really amazing.
Right.
Um,
And just to add to that too, I remember like even just a few months ago, there's certain corporate companies that were so hesitant about letting their employees work from home. And now a pandemic hits, and hey, look, we're all doing well, and teams are functioning, companies are functioning, and we're maybe even functioning in somewhat more productive ways. But yeah, definitely though, I would say keep in mind your employees' wellness, because they're
burnout.
definitely missing an aspect.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, when you start talking about being, the thing about digital direct like this is that
Mhm.
like you're on.
Yeah,
You're
right.
on. It's high energy in some cases. And to do that from 8 to 5, day after day after day after day, it takes a toll.
It
And
can be exhausting.
yeah, just the
Exactly.
company's really realizing that. And I really see that that's happening. So it's been good to see.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I ask this of every interviewee that I have on, because the name of the podcast is Your Leadership Legacy.
Hmm.
And so I want to know from you, what legacy do you aspire to leave?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And this is the legacy that I hope to leave. And I want people to remember me by saying that, yes, I was inspired by Aruna, or Aruna showed me how to be happy, or Aruna, the information that Aruna gave me helped me find happiness. And happiness can be different for everybody. That could be happiness in a career, they've met their career goals, or happiness in life, that all their relationships are good, happiness in their business, that they've figured out how to organize their business or how they can grow their business. But I want to be a part of that, that I want to say that I helped you think a different way, or I helped you learn how to get to your happiness goal.
That's amazing. Yes, yes, yes. Imagine a world where everybody just kind of had that. We were all happy and doing exactly what we love doing. And we got past the resistance and we let go of the control. And
Right.
it's, I honestly believe, Aruna, and I think you and I have actually talked about this, like this is the work that's going to save the planet. I truly believe that.
Right.
I
I
truly believe.
hope so. I
Yeah.
hope so. I hope our energy just keeps moving forward.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. So where can people find you?
Yeah, people can find me on LinkedIn. I'm quite active on LinkedIn. So Aruna Krishnan on LinkedIn. You can check out my podcast. You can find it on Instagram. My handle is at Lead That Thing. And yeah, I also have a podcast page on LinkedIn as well.
And most importantly, you have the coolest superhero cartoon avatar I've ever seen. Every
Thank
time I
you.
see that, I'm like, I love that. It's really awesome. So good. Okay. So, and you have a free gift. Tell us about your free gift.
Yes, I do. So, my very first book in the Busy Mind series, which I mentioned briefly in this podcast, was around building emotional intelligence. So, based on my mindfulness journey. So, that is free right now on Amazon all the way through the end of Tuesday. So, jump on Amazon. I think Kenzie's putting a link out there. So, jump on out there and you can grab the ebook for free for the next 5 days.
Amazing. Thank you. What a great gift. That's awesome. 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 All right. I want to thank you for being on. It's been so great to get to know you over the last couple of months. And I know that there's so much more that we're going to do moving forward, and really, really happy to call you friend. So thank you so much for being on.
Thank you, Tina. Thank you so much for having me on. Always a pleasure to talk to you.
Absolutely. All right, everyone. That ends this episode of Your Leadership Legacy. My name is Tina Paulus-Krause. And until next time, take care. My name is Tina Paulus-Krause, and I thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed the show. Check out our programs and events at trueyouteams.com. And until next time, make it an amazing day.